what it really means to burn for God without burning out. When someone truly loves God, they naturally want to give everything for Him. They pray faithfully, serve in church, and try their best to walk in obedience. But sometimes, even sincere hearts grow tired. The same person who once burned brightly begins to feel dry, distant, and wonders, what happened to my fire? It's not that your faith is weak. It's that you've been trying to keep the fire alive with your own strength. God never asked you to burn yourself out for Him. He asked you to be a lamp filled with His oil, a flame that burns steadily, not wildly, powered by His love and His Spirit. When we understand this, everything changes. Living for God stops feeling like a constant push and starts feeling like a peaceful rhythm. It's no longer about doing more, but about staying close, resting in the one who keeps the flame alive. In this video, we're going to explore how to truly burn for God without burning out, how to let the fire in your heart grow stronger, deeper, and full of life, so that it doesn't consume you, but instead brings light and hope to everyone around you. Part 1. Burning for God means being fueled by love, not pressure. When people talk about burning for God, many of us picture intensity. We think of long nights of prayer, serving in every ministry, saying yes to every need, pushing ourselves to prove that our love for God is real. And sometimes, without even noticing, we begin to live under a quiet pressure. I can't slow down. I can't say no. If I rest, maybe I'm letting God down. But the flame God wants in you is not built on pressure. Pressure creates anxiety. Love creates endurance. Jesus said His yoke is easy and His burden is light. That is not poetry. That is a description of what it feels like to walk with Him the right way. When the fire in your heart is carried by love, it does not crush you. You may get physically tired, because we're human, but you don't live spiritually drained. You don't walk around feeling guilty every second you pause to breathe. There is a difference between serving God out of fear and serving God out of love. Fear says, I have to keep performing, or God will be disappointed in me. Love says, God is already with me, so I want to walk with Him in whatever I do today. One sounds like slavery, the other sounds like relationship. Let me put it in something simple. Think about a mother caring for her child. She cooks, she cleans, she loses sleep. If you wrote down everything she does in a day, it's overwhelming. But ask her why she does it, and she won't say, because I'm terrified my child will reject me if I stop. She'll say, because I love them. The love doesn't erase effort, but the love changes the weight of the effort. Faith is supposed to work the same way. When love is the fuel, the weight changes. A lot of believers carry a secret tension in their heart. They love God, but they also feel constantly behind. They feel like they're never praying enough, never reading enough, never doing enough. Every time they scroll and see someone else doing big things for God, they feel small. They feel late. They feel like they should be on fire in a louder way. Can I tell you something gently? That feeling is not from the Holy Spirit. The Spirit convicts us when we're walking in sin. Yes, but constant heaviness, constant comparison, constant panic that you're not spiritual enough, that does not come from the one who calls Himself rest. When pressure is the fuel, ministry becomes a performance. Worship becomes a show. Prayer becomes a checklist. We stop meeting with God, and we start managing an image of being close to God. Sometimes we even begin to measure our holiness by our exhaustion. We start to believe that being worn out is a sign of being faithful. But exhaustion is not the proof of devotion. Obedience is. Surrender is. Trust is. And here's the beautiful thing. Trust does not burn you out. Trust frees you. Burning for God was never supposed to mean run until you collapse. It was always meant to mean live so rooted in God's love that His love keeps you burning. So let me ask you a quiet question, not to shame you, but to help you breathe. What is really driving you right now? Is it love or is it pressure? Are you serving because your heart is full, or because you're afraid to disappoint? Are you running with Jesus, or running to impress Him? Because the answer to that question will decide whether your fire will last or fade. Part 2. True fire comes from time spent in God's presence, not constant activity. There's something we all have to learn sooner or later. Being busy for God is not the same as being close to God. You can fill every hour with ministry, volunteering, and projects, and still find yourself empty inside. That's not failure. It's a reminder that activity without intimacy will always run dry. The story of Martha and Mary says it beautifully. Martha was doing good things, important things, serving the Lord Himself. But Jesus gently told her that Mary, who simply sat at His feet and listened, had chosen the better part. He didn't say Martha's work was wrong. He said it was incomplete without presence. Many of us fall into Martha's rhythm without realizing it. We say yes to every need, every request, every opportunity to serve. We stay late, we take on more, and we call it zeal. But if our hearts never stop long enough to listen, even good work starts to lose its joy. The flame that once burned bright begins to flicker, not because we've sinned, but because we've stopped being still. Think about your phone for a moment. It can have the best battery in the world, but if you never plug it in, it will still die. The same is true for the soul. You can have the strongest willpower, the best intentions, the most sincere desire to serve, but without time in God's presence, your spiritual energy drains, the fire dims, the peace fades, the strength disappears, not because you're weak, but because you weren't meant to burn without connection. When Jesus walked the earth, He healed the sick, preached to crowds, and carried the weight of a whole world's brokenness, yet He constantly stepped away to be alone with the Father. The Son of God Himself needed that quiet place. What makes us think we can do without it? Time in God's presence is not wasted time. It's the oxygen of your spirit. It's where you remember who He is and who you are not. It's where pressure melts into peace. It's where your heart is recentered before you walk back into the noise of life. Sometimes people tell me, I feel far from God, even though I'm doing everything I can. I often say, maybe you're doing too much of everything, and not enough of one thing, being still with Him. The presence of God isn't a reward for doing more. It's the starting point for doing anything at all. When the fire of your faith feels dim, don't rush to do more. Stop, breathe, sit with Him. Open the Word not as a task, but as a conversation. Let silence become prayer. You'll notice something beautiful. Your heart begins to warm again. Not from effort, but from connection. Burning for God doesn't mean moving faster. It means staying closer. And when you learn to stay close, your fire won't fade. It will burn steady, bright, and strong, fueled not by performance, but by presence. Part 3. God doesn't need your exhaustion. He wants your endurance. There's a quiet lie many believers start to believe, after a while, that exhaustion equals faithfulness, that if you're tired, drained, and always running on empty, it must mean you're doing something right. But God never asked for your exhaustion. He asked for your endurance, the kind that lasts not because you're strong, but because you're sustained. Exhaustion happens when we run beyond grace. Endurance happens when we run within it. Psalm 37 says, "Be still before the Lord, and wait patiently for Him." Notice the words "be still, wait patiently." That's not laziness. It's spiritual strength. Because it takes faith to pause when everything in you says, I can't stop. It takes trust to let God fight the battles you can't see while you rest in His timing. Think of a candle burning in the dark. It doesn't shout. It doesn't rush. It doesn't try to prove it's on fire. It simply stands where it's placed and keeps burning. That's endurance. It's quiet. It's consistent. It's not loud like fireworks, but it lights the room long after the noise has faded. Sometimes, endurance looks like getting up again when you'd rather quit. Sometimes, it's praying the same prayer one more time, even when the answer hasn't come. Sometimes, it's loving the same people who keep testing your patience. Those moments don't make headlines, but they make saints. God is not impressed by how fast we start. He is moved by how faithfully we continue. The race of faith is not a sprint. It's a lifelong walk with Him, and the strength to finish that walk doesn't come from adrenaline. It comes from abiding. When you learn to pace yourself with God, you start to see that true endurance is peaceful. It's not frantic. It's not forced. It's full of quiet confidence that He is carrying what you cannot. You stop measuring your worth by what you do and start measuring it by who you're walking with. Some of you might be thinking, but if I slow down, won't everything fall apart? That's fear talking, not faith. Because when you rest in God, things don't fall apart, they fall into place. His timing isn't delayed, it's deliberate. He's not trying to slow you down to punish you, but to protect you from burning out on a path He never asked you to run alone. Let your strength be renewed, not replaced. You don't have to restart everything. You just need to reconnect. Isaiah 40 says that those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. That's the kind of fire that doesn't die out. It doesn't burn through your peace. It burns with it. So if you've been running until your soul feels heavy, maybe it's time to stop proving and start trusting. Because God never measures devotion by exhaustion. He measures it by endurance, the kind that walks through storms with peace, keeps faith through silence, and stays lit even when the world goes dark. Part 4. The secret to burning without burning out. Stay connected to the source. Every fire needs fuel. If you cut off the source, the flame eventually dies, no matter how bright it once was. The same is true for us. You can have passion, purpose, even calling, but without staying connected to God, the fire of your faith will flicker and fade. The secret to burning without burning out has never been about doing more. It's about staying close to the source. Jesus said in John 15:5, I am the vine, you are the branches. Apart from me, you can do nothing. That isn't a warning, it's an invitation. He's not saying don't you dare drift away. He's saying stay with me, and you will live, flourish, and bear fruit. A branch doesn't strain to produce life. It simply stays connected, and life flows naturally through it. So many believers burn out because they try to sustain spiritual fire with human effort. They treat prayer like a duty, worship like a task, and devotion like a score to keep. But fire that comes from the flesh always needs to be forced, and forced fire dies fast. Real fire, the kind that lasts, is not self-made. It's spirit-given. It's the glow that comes when His presence becomes your atmosphere, not just your moment of worship. Connection is not complicated. It's not about long prayers or perfect words. It's about awareness, about remembering that God is near even in the ordinary. You can stay connected to the source while doing dishes, driving to work, walking through pain, or sitting in silence. The Spirit doesn't just visit temples made by hands. He lives in hearts that welcome Him. Sometimes we think connection must always feel powerful or emotional, but often it's quiet. It's a deep knowing that even when you feel nothing, He's still here. The power is not in how much you feel, it's in how deeply you remain. Think of an oil lamp. The flame doesn't panic when the night gets darker. It doesn't shout for more light. It simply keeps burning because the oil is still flowing. When you stay close to God, your soul becomes that lamp. You stop panicking when life feels uncertain, because you know the oil of His presence hasn't stopped. He's still pouring strength, wisdom, and peace into you. This kind of connection brings rest, not pressure. It brings direction, not confusion. It turns worry into worship. And the closer you stay to Him, the more natural obedience becomes. You stop striving to please God and start walking with Him. You stop fearing burnout, because His energy becomes your own. If you've been feeling dry, don't try to create a new fire. Just go back to the source. Return to the quiet place where your heart first learned to listen. Open your hands. Let Him fill you again. Because when you're connected, the flame won't consume you. It will sustain you. It will glow through every season, steady and strong, lit not by your willpower, but by His unending love. Part 5. Burning for God means shining where you are, not everywhere at once. One of the hidden reasons people burn out is because they try to burn everywhere. They say yes to every opportunity, every request, every open door, until the light that was meant to shine clearly begins to scatter. But God never asked you to light up the whole world by yourself. He asked you to shine where He placed you. Jesus called us the light of the world. But notice, He didn't say we must become a wildfire. A steady lamp can do more good than a scattered blaze. The lamp doesn't run across the city trying to shine in every corner. It simply stays where it's needed and gives light there. That's wisdom. That's maturity. Many believers mistake calling for competition. They see others doing great things for God and start to feel behind. But God's plan for your life doesn't depend on how much ground you cover. It depends on how faithful you are with the ground you've been given. You don't need to be everywhere to be effective. You just need to be present where God wants you. When you try to carry every burden, fix every problem, and say yes to every need, you end up carrying what only God can handle. The weight becomes too heavy, not because you're weak, but because it was never meant to be yours. Burning for God doesn't mean doing everything. It means doing the right things with a whole heart. Maybe the Lord has placed you in a small place right now. Maybe you wish it was bigger. Maybe you feel unseen. But sometimes the smallest spaces hold the brightest light. A single candle in a dark room changes everything around it. When you shine faithfully where you are, God expands your reach at the right time. You don't have to chase influence when you carry His presence. True light never rushes. It simply reveals, and the people around you, your family, your coworkers, your church, your friends, need that kind of light more than they need more noise. They need to see peace, patience, and hope in action. They need to see that God's love can burn quietly and still change everything it touches. So stop trying to burn everywhere. Stay where grace has planted you. Let the fire of His love shape your words, your work, your daily kindness. That's where real ministry begins. That's how God turns ordinary moments into holy ones. If you shine faithfully where you are, you'll notice something beautiful. Your life begins to feel lighter, not heavier. You no longer burn out because you're not trying to carry the whole world's darkness. You're just reflecting the light of the one who already overcame it. The fire God placed in you was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to guide, to comfort, and to draw others to Him. When you burn in the right place, for the right reason, fueled by His love. You won't fade, you'll illuminate, because the light that comes from God doesn't run out. It keeps shining steady and strong, one faithful day at a time. Conclusion. To burn for God is not to live on the edge of exhaustion. It's to live so deeply connected to His heart that His strength becomes your own. The people who truly shine for God aren't the ones who never rest, but the ones who've learned where their fire comes from. When you look at your journey, maybe you'll see moments when you tried too hard, when you pushed, served, gave, and poured until you had nothing left. But even then, God never stopped being gentle with you. He's not standing over you with disappointment. He's inviting you back to the quiet place, to breathe again, to let Him refill what life has drained. The flame that comes from Him doesn't demand attention. It doesn't burn you from the inside out. It steadies you. It warms your faith again. It gives peace a place to live inside you. And as that peace grows, your light spreads, not through effort, but through overflow. So if your fire feels small right now, don't despair. Small flames still light the dark. What matters is not how bright you look to others, but that you stay close to the source. Because when the fire is truly from God, it never burns out. It only burns brighter. May your life become that kind of light, quiet, steady, and full of grace. A fire that never destroys, but renews. A fire that reminds everyone who sees it that God's presence still burns, still calls, still gives life.